I am doing a thing. um, I don't know how to start this off. Anyway, if you've subscribed to my channel or you've seen any of the videos I've done before, this is a pretty big departure. I mean, I'm still dressed weird. That's still a thing. But I wanted to come on and do a little sort of knitting and sewing update, catch up, monthly vlog slash progress report, I guess. I've been really into watching knitting vlogs. Sorry, my headphone in. And I really wanted to make one of my own. We just moved across country. We picked up and moved like 2 months ago, and I haven't gotten really situated here. So I figured I'd talk to strangers on the internet, because what else do you do in this day and age? So I figure I will try and make these every couple of weeks when I have stuff to show, and just talk about some of my knitting and some of my sewing and other crafting, which tends to be like embroidery and Irish crochet lace, a little bit of crochet in general, and some other stuff. So I think we should just hop in. I'm coming to you today from Pittsburgh, PA. I recently moved from Albuquerque, New Mexico, so I am in full culture shock of living someplace that is very, very cold. And I'm sure if you're from a really cold place, you're just absolutely laughing at me, but it's supposed to be 63 on Friday, and I am terrified. It does get cold in New Mexico. It just doesn't get as cold as here, and it doesn't snow as much. So I'm ready with all of the knitwear, because one good bonus point is I get to wear a lot of knitwear that I wouldn't be able to wear in a warmer climate. So I'm going to show off a few of the things I have finished first. These are things I finished since we moved, and I've been really excited. I planned out, when we decided to move, I planned out so many things to knit in the car. Well, I planned out 2 projects, in which I did neither, because we drove across country with our cat, who might wander at some point. And I realized that I cannot pay attention to multiple things at once. And I was very focused on her, and I did not knit anything. I think I knit maybe an inch on a sock while we were in a hotel, and that was about it. It was a road trip. It was definitely a road trip. But I am always one of those people who's like, oh my gosh, we're going on vacation. I have to take, 3 knitting projects and some embroidery, and I'm gonna get so much done. I need to bring 2 books. I get nothing done. I'm also the type of person on a holiday that I will jam pack a schedule and be on my feet, 30, 40,000 steps a day during any sort of holiday. So this is some stuff that I finished once we moved here, and I've gotten a little bit of wear out of this first one, which I'm really excited about, because this was my first time working with Holst Garn Coast, which is it's a little cardigan like this. It's very hard to show. It's got a little tie neck, which I'm really excited about. It has like a little vintage styling to it, and the back is plain with 1 cable down the center, and it has the lines of on the front. I'll put in a picture, hopefully I will figure out how to do that, of what it looks like worn, because obviously it looks better than me trying to hold up a ball of fluff. But this is my first time working with Holst Garn Coast, and I was really excited. I'd worked with Holst Supersoft, and I feel like that gets promoted so heavily as like a great budget yarn, and it is great. It is a really great yarn. I think Holst Supersoft is really nice, and I would recommend it, but I feel like the Coast base, which is wool and cotton, is so much more versatile, and just really nice to work with. Like, the whole garment is very light. For being a cotton garment, it's so light. I used 120 grams of yarn for this. I bought 5 balls, assuming that I would need that much, because it's, I just sort of winged it, and it's being shipped from Denmark, so I might as well buy as much as I think I might need. And I used so little. I have enough for almost a whole other cardigan. So I'm gonna make something else with it. But it's so light, it's so delicate, it has like such a soft drape to it. It's perfect for summer knits. Of course, it is coming to the end of summer, so I left it a little bit late, but I really, really wanted something a little more muted colored. I have a lot of pastels for summer, and I really wanted a few more muted colored things, mainly because like as I get older, I have been tending more towards sort of more muted pastels, sort of dusky jewel tones, things that are a little less vibrant. Not to say like you can't wear super bright things when you're older, just I find that my color palette's changing. So this is just a self-drafted pattern. It's a seamed cardigan, so there's seams up the inside. I really don't mind seaming. I know that seamless garments are such a popular thing, but I really don't mind seaming. I feel like it gives a really nice shape. I'm very short-waisted and very hourglass in my shape, and I find that a seamed cardigan often works better because the structure those seams give. To the point sometimes when I knit in the round for a full seamless garment that I will leave like 2 purl stitches on either side and then seam them in to create like a real seam, but not actually holding anything together. So yeah, I'm really, really happy with this. I also decided instead of knitting the sleeves flat, because I don't actually really enjoy knitting sleeves flat as much. I don't know why. I think it's probably a time thing. I feel like when you're knitting a sleeve flat, it feels like it takes more time than knitting the body. I mean, often because it's practically a whole other back piece, right? So I cast on and then did a short row shoulder, which I just winged, and it worked out. I took okay enough notes. I managed to get them to match for the most part on the other side. I really love this color too. Like it is, I don't know if it's holding up. Let me try putting it up here real quick. I think that's pretty decent. It's maybe a tiny bit lighter than that. And the color's called Cocoa. Now we got to talk about this, right? The color's called Cocoa, but this is purple. This is 100% purple. Like it's like muted grape sucker as a color. It is not a color that you would call cocoa. And I hemmed and hawed when I looked at the website because I was like, oh no, it's called cocoa. It's got to be way browner, and it's just the colors on my screen are not showing it, right? Like it's just not showing right. So I looked up a bunch of people who'd used it in projects, and no, it's purple. It's 100% purple. I don't know why they decided that like we should just call it cocoa. Maybe there's a reason. Maybe. I don't know what that reason would be, but maybe there's a reason. Yeah, and the stitch patterns are both from the Japanese Stitch Dictionary. One of them, I don't remember. I think this one's from the Lace book, and I don't know if this one is from the Lace book or from their other, like, more generic one. And I really like this one. I'm going to show you, let's see, like this. So you can see I really love the, like, stripes it gives because it has such a clear, like, vertical line. I feel like it looks really nice, especially because it's a very cropped cardigan. It hits pretty much bang on my waist, and I feel like it gives like a nice structural type element. I was super duper inspired by some cardigans by Fint, which is a Japanese brand. They do a lot of cute sort of modern vintage girly type styles, and I really like a lot of their knitwear. I think they do such a good job, and I really loved they had some cardigans with that type of vertical lace and a quite compact silhouette. And I think this sort of softness of the fabric plus the more rigidity of the pattern really worked together very well. So this is my first one. I have been working this for a while. Because it's pieces, I had finished like the back a long time ago, and then just I think I took a break and did something else before I finished the fronts. Yeah, but I'm really excited. I've worn it a ton. It's been done for like 3 weeks. Probably not even 3 weeks, but I've worn it probably 5 or 6 times already. Because it is very light, and even here in the humidity, I don't find it troublesome to wear. Everyone tells you when you move from someplace dry to someplace humid that you will gonna die. I really like the humidity, other than what it does to my hair. I apologize. I'm a fluff ball. I have no clue what to do with my hair. It's just everywhere. I'm just gonna have to deal with the fact that I'm a poof ball now. I have like generically wavy hair, and it just kind of in the humidity. Sometimes I walk outside and my hair is twice as big, and I wear my hair in like 2 braids most of the time now because I have no clue. I don't know what people do in the humidity. I lived too long in the desert to figure it out, so I'm just gonna stay poofy. So the next thing that I finished is a sweater, and one of my big vices, my toxic trait, is that I love to buy thrift store yarn. I feel like it's a little bit like rescuing something that somebody got rid of, and things end up in thrift stores for a billion different reasons, and I'm super happy that some people do get rid of stuff because you get great deals. But my problem is that it's often not a full sweater quantity of yarn. It's not the right type of yarn for the projects I'm going to work on. I try not to buy things in colors or weights of yarn that I wouldn't use. Like, I don't ever really knit with like bulky, super bulky yarn. And so I never buy colors I would never wear personally. I'm not an electric lime green person. If you couldn't tell, I'm not an electric lime green type person, but it does mean that I have bits and bobs of yarn, often 2 skeins or full skein, of really nice yarn that I want to use up. And I, in the process of moving, I tried to downsize my yarn stash and be much more intentional and plan some projects, like set aside some actual time to plan a few projects, and this is one of them. I really wanted a vintage style sweater, so I wear a lot of Japanese street fashion, Lolita fashion, Natural K, Mori girl, sort of general otome girly styles, as well as vintage inspired things, and just I guess cottagecore is kind of the thing. I think I'm too old to say that. But cottagecore-esque things. I want to look like I came out of a fairy tale. It was my main goal. Like, I'm good with most fairy tales. But this is definitely more vintage style. I really wanted something that had like a nice, strong sort of 1940s vibe. Not that this is a 1940s pattern, because it's not. But I was highly inspired by those things. And I'm not trying to say it's actually vintage or, conforms to vintage things. I know the vintage community can be strict about like what actually qualifies. So anyway, it's a sweater. So this was made with, I did not bring, I think I have a tiny bit of the yarn left, but I didn't remember to bring it in here with me, and I'm not gonna get up and get it, sorry. It is with, I think, Brown Sheep Co., which is a company in Nebraska. I'll put it down below, whatever the actual name of this is. And if I talk about other things, I'll try and put them all below, because I appreciate that when other people do it. I'll try and be a good, I know knitting people they call it knitting podcasts when they do this, but it's a video. Vodcast sounds stupid. Podcast sounds smarter, but like, I'm not just podding. Oh, that's not that's not right at all. I'm not just podding at you. I'm videoing. Anyway, I completely lost my thread. Anyway, this is a sweater I've been working on, and it turned out really nice. Like, I'm very happy with the sweater. I have a couple of things that will go really nicely with. I think I'm going to get a lot more wear out of a worsted weight sweater here, and I can't say I'm excited for the cold weather, but when it comes, I'm going to have all the sweaters. So this is what I made. Now, I'm going to warn you, I did a lot of decreases on the body, and it looks silly when not worn. So before I show you the bottom, just realize I'm weird shaped, and it fits me, so it's just a warning, okay? So you can see I did a lot of decreases on the side. Was that both? Yeah. But it's a colorwork pattern, and it's got, oh, there we go. I've got colorwork bands across, which I didn't continue the top band on the shoulder because I wanted to sort of de-emphasize my shoulders a little, and I figured starting the band down a little lower, like this first sort of one that hits around the bust, would be a little more flattering because I do have really broad shoulders. And I did little poof sleeves, so it has a very square shape off. But I really liked this. A lot of sort of 30s, early 40s, where it has that very high, narrow sleeve cap in a lot of the, at least dress patterns. And the knitting wear does have that sort of emulated as well. And I did this by picking up just like 4 stitches at the top and then picking up 1 stitch each time I went around until I got to this front band. And once I got to the front band, then I picked up and finished off the sleeve, which I really, really like the shape. Now, it's not a shape I'd use on everything because it definitely gives like a super vintage shape, but I think it does a really nice job of capturing that shape without having to knit separate sleeves. I don't hate knitting separate sleeves. I just have 2 things that I didn't want to knit separate sleeves for. Mainly because on this one, because I was running out of yarn. It reaches just about my wrists because I have orangutan arms. But I was really worried about running out of yarn, which is why I did this as it is. So, that's where I was before. I was talking about yarn. I'll get back there eventually. I'm so sorry. This is a total mess. Oh, if you're listening to me, I'm sorry. But I was in a run out of yarn. So I had 2 balls of the oatmeal color, sort of tan, oatmeal, brown. I mean, that's tan. My hat's tan. And this is a little more creamy. I think it's oatmeal. You could spill a bowl of oatmeal on this, wouldn't notice. No, it's oatmeal. So I had 2 balls of it, 200 gram skeins, put-ups. I think they were actually skeins. I've been told that the skein isn't actually a skein isn't this. A skein is like the little nuggety ones. I don't know if that's true. I might just be lying, bald-faced lie on that one. But I had 200 gram amounts of the brown plus like a ball of unknown quantity. I mean, I could have weighed it, but I didn't. And then I had a bit of this cream, which is a different brand that actually was a vintage yarn. So that's a superwash. Or vintage yarns don't tend to write superwash on them. They tend to say like shrink proof or moth proofed and things like that on them instead, which I'm assuming it's whatever they used as superwash technology back then. Maybe it just wasn't called superwash at the time, but they seem to be as we would consider a modern superwash yarn. And then the colors in here, which are, bring that up closer, they are a sort of orangey red and a sagey green, and then little pops, these little guys of like a gold. I think I might have just hit the microphone. I'm so sorry. So the pops of little goldness in here are from a cardigan or a sweater I made like 3 years ago, and I love that color. I have like half a tiny little 25 gram put up left of it, and I just pop it into a ton of things. I think it's just the most beautiful color. And the other 2 were full of that Nebraska wool, which I found at the thrift store in a bag. Like, such a good find. Like, I just love thrift stores, right? I found in a bag with the 3 balls of this and then 2 balls, one of the green, one of the that color, one of the orange red, for like $7, and they were $12 a skein originally when they were purchased, and I think they're a little more expensive now because I looked it up to see if I could buy an extra skein of this color because I was running out. So I had made the decision to knit the body, so the front's knit flat up until underarms, and then it's knit in the round, so fully seamless on that. And also my delightful decrease. This is the bust side, this is the waist side, and I wanted to decrease, and I didn't want to have to fuss with changing the chart, which I just came up with a chart. I could have changed it, I don't know. I got stubborn, and I decreased a full repeat in the side, which it fits amazingly. I have a much larger bust than waist, and I am very short-waisted. I am on the taller side, but I have like the torso of a much, much shorter person. So it worked out really well. It fits actually really, really well. It's fully figure hugging on my body, but it looks ridiculous when it's flat. I mean, who sees a sweater when it's flat though, right? Except if you try and take nice photos for Instagram, I guess. So I knit from the body flat to here, under the arm, and then I picked up and knit this in the round, of which, I'm gonna try and not make this like a billion-year-long video, but I ramble, and I got nobody else to talk to right now. In this sweater, I almost got done the sweater in a week. It's a worsted weight sweater, and it's cropped, and it's tight-fitting. There's no extra ease. It is like zero ease. It's not negative ease. It's like zero ease. So it's not that bad. Not that crazy of an accomplishment. But I broke my needles. I had a pair of fixed needles, which I threw them away. I should have showed them because it was too funny. Well, it wasn't when it happened, but it's funny now. I was knitting and I heard this little ting. That was all I heard. And I'm like, oh no. And I keep knitting and I'm running out of stitches on my needle to work. And I had all these live stitches just had popped off, and the cable holding the needle had just tinked off, completely tinked off. And luckily I picked up all the stitches. I wasn't in the middle of color work or anything like that. I had actually, and you can tell because my stitch, my row gauge and my stitch gauge changed. My whole gauge changed. I had just finished here, I'm pretty sure, or I had just finished here. No, I must have just finished here. Which is why this little bottom band is a little thinner, which I think looks okay. It looks kind of intentional that the bottom band is thinner than the top. Like it looks like it's intentionally decreasing. I had bought this set of needles on AliExpress. I got them as a budget set to I figured I would buy a few really nice needles in the sizes I used frequently, and then just get a nice budget fixed circular set, and I would eventually one day be a good person and upgrade and not continue to use my slightly off-brand knitting needles. And they work amazingly well. I'm not gonna knock it. It was a good purchase. For $8, I got 15 sizes of knitting needles, but they broke. It's been 3 years, so I can't fault them for that, to be honest. But the problem was, and you think, oh, it's not that bad of a problem. You just go out and buy a new set, right? You buy a new knitting needle, you go to Joann's, you can go to Michael's, you can, go to a local yarn shop, and you'll be fine, right? No, because it's not a size. That needle was not a size. It was completely between sizes. So it was a 4.33, which doesn't exist. I got a needle gauge to check, just to make sure, make sure I'm going to buy the right one. Went to the store. No, it's 4.33, which doesn't exist. It just doesn't exist. It's not a size that's made. It's not a size that I've ever seen. The needles were just not accurate. They weren't right. They weren't the right size. I have no clue. I mean, I'm sure someone out there came up with the sizes, and they worked fine. Because the whole point of knitting is getting gauge and getting a fabric you like out of the yarn, not the specific needle size. So it never posed a problem until I needed to switch needles halfway through. So my gauge got a little tiny bit tighter, mainly with the color work at the bottom. And then I knit the sleeves. So I'm really happy with this sweater. When I picked up and did a double, a folded collar. I love a folded collar. I don't know why when I started knitting, I was so against a folded collar. I was no, I don't want to knit a folded collar. It looks bulky. It seems like it's going to take too much time. I think because when you start off with the collar on something, this is when I picked up and then knit the collar, the stitches are all picked up. I didn't start with it, but a lot of the top-down, beginner type sweaters, I knit a flax pullover, which I totally recommend if you need a first sweater, knit a flax. It was a good experience. I think the very first one I knit a baby size because I was super impatient and just wanted to learn how a sweater worked. So, but I would always want to get to the meat of the sweater, the actual fun part. And then I did it for one sweater and I can never go back. I love a folded collar. I even have one sweater that I did a folded hem, a folded collar, and even folded cuffs. And I just think the look is amazing. This one isn't. This is just plain because I was running out of yarn. But I think for a $7 sweater made out of 100% wool and, you know, cobbled together with bits and pieces, I'm really happy with this. I'm going to see how much I wear it in the winter. I think it's a nice, like, early fall knit for here. I wear cardigans in 90-degree weather, so I think this is early fall for me. Well, that's the only thing I finished since I've been here. I have 2 things I'm working on, and I'm about to cast on a couple more, but I'll just show you what I'm working on right now. So my long-standing project is my socks, my little bag, and my socks. These are just some West Yorkshire Spinner yarn, and I have a nice big cuff for turning over. They're just house socks. And yes, I do have giant feet. Thank you for noticing. Yeah, they're big. They're super duper big. These are also knit to be essentially zero ease. So socks you often knit a little more conforming to your foot because you want them to stay up. But I just wanted a pair of house socks. Like, I am not a slipper person. I don't really wear slippers, and I don't wear shoes in the house. So I really wanted a pair of just like cozy socks. I think I have a knitting needle stuck into it. My first one here, this was knit. Well, it was intended to be knit on a road trip. A prior road trip. We went to Colorado Springs this summer to visit family, and I brought it to knit in the car and didn't, because I don't knit in the car apparently. I can knit on the train, and that's how I've got most of this knitting done. On this sock, which I think I'm actually to the point where I should be turning for the heel, but I got going, and I find knitting on the train is perfect for no one to talk to you. So here's the other one. And this is my first time knitting a full sock on 9-inch circulars. The main thing was I wanted to knit at the movie theater. We don't go to a lot of movies, but I am a fidgety person. You can't tell by the amount of like up and down and hand flapping I'm doing. And I like to knit, you know, in general. I tend not to knit when like chatting to people because I stop chatting because I don't care. No, I tend to knit when I'm reading, or, you know, that kind of stuff, just like the mindless stuff. And I like to have some project that I can do and just pick up and knit. Like, I don't feel like I have to be constantly productive or anything, but I really kind of just like something that's a bit mindless to do. And when you have a sweater that's all stockinette and things like that, that's perfect as well. But this is really nice for the train. There's a little baby train here. I'm knitting with 9-inch circulars, which that looks obscene. Oh, I'm sorry. Anyway, from the front, the 9-inch circulars. It was my first time really knitting with these guys, and I'm on the fence. I wanted them for movie theater knitting and for knitting while preoccupied because you don't have an end around. So you don't have like your knitting come to do your magic loop and you have like one beginning stitch, because that would be always a stitch I would screw up in movie theaters because it gets dark and you can't always catch that first stitch. I can when I'm on a roll, but when there's that little bit of pressure from a magic loop, I will miss that first stitch, or I won't knock it off my needle completely, and that's how I end up with like messed up socks. And then what's the point of having knit through a movie? You have to rip it back. And that's all in my little Bluebird flower bag. So if you are from the Southwest, I'm sure you know this flower company. Let me zip it up. And this is Bluebird Flower. There we go. Cortez, Colorado. And this is like the best flour for making tortillas. If you're gonna make your own tortillas, you've gotta buy the Bluebird. Like, it's a tradition. I use regular flour here because I can't get it. But I thought the bags are super cute. They're little cotton bags. I have one bigger one to make into a tiny little tote bag, but this is like their baby size. So it's just a little folded bottom, like square bottom style tote bag, yarn bag. I make a lot of my own project bags because I never think in advance that I need a project bag, and then I'm like, well, I'll just whip one up. I should mention, I'm going to talk about sewing stuff too, but I figured I'd start with knitting. I don't know. I'm winging this. I'm very badly meaningless. Let's talk about that. Next thing is this little project bag I made. And this one, this was my favorite dress. And then I became an adult. Then I liked cookies. This was one of my favorite dresses when I was like 19, 20. It is little Burbies. And what I really like about this bag, I did a really thorough job. It was one of the first times I made a project bag and like took into consideration it doesn't need to just be a plain bag. So it's got multiple pockets on the inside, and it's got a little loop here. So you can put on like a carbiner. Yep. You know what I mean. You can put on a little hooky thing to hang your stitch markers, which I think is really nice. And I love the little pockets. It's fully lined, it's interfaced, drawstringy, little. So the one thing I have been doing differently on a lot of my other ones, and I did differently on this one, was I put a bigger strap on because I like to be able to hold it. This one I tend to hold, like, because it says small needles with that, I put it on 2 fingers and then I can knit with the rest, and that way my yarn's right there. But for some of my bigger ones, I made it so I could put my whole hand through and it can sit on my wrist. Because that way if I'm knitting and walking, which I don't really do very often because I don't find the opportunity comes up a lot, then I can at least put it on my wrist like when I'm on the train, because then I don't have to worry about dropping the bag. So this is going to look like a finished object, but it's not, because I don't want to say I screwed up, because I don't think I screwed up. I don't think the pattern screwed up. I think there was just a disconnect. So this is a beret. I am a beret lover. I think berets are amazing. This one is just giant. This is super duper giant. So this is a lace and cable beret. Let me hold this up closer. There we go. It is a lace and cable beret in some hand-dyed yarn, and it's so soft. So I knit this with some hand-dyed yarn from Kid You Not, which I love that like yarn shops all use puns because I like puns. I'm obviously their target demographic on that because I love puns. But they're the first yarn shop I went here, and like I'll get into that in a minute because it was amazing, and they're amazing. Anyway, the owner and her daughter have a yarn brand, which I am forgetting the name of, and I put the ball band somewhere, but they had some really pretty colors, and I've actually never bought like hand-dyed yarn before. I found one skein at the thrift store, but it was like a solid, like semi-solid color. This is my first. What was I saying? Oh, it was the first time I bought like a, variegated yarn. To be honest, I've never really been the biggest fan of a lot of the highly variegated, highly speckled, pops of color kind of yarns. I feel like they often look very different in the skein than how they look knit up, and I don't really have the experience of knitting them up to see how to, look at the skein and be like, that will work perfectly as blankety blank. Plus, I think a lot of the things I wear and like to knit are a little bit more served by a simple yarn, but I was enamored. I was enamored with this yarn. It's such a pretty stormy color. And then I held one hair. I held one hair. I'm sure there's a few hairs knitted in this. I'm sure if anyone who has long hair knows you knit a few hairs in every once in a while. Gross, I know. But I held one strand of Kid Silk mohair with it, which is in a gray color, and you can tell from like that halo. It's got like a gray color to it. It's like a slightly purpley gray, but I think it worked really well to like smooth the variegation in that, to have it really just sort of transition very seamlessly. I mean, the yarn is dyed beautifully. There's not really any, like, it's not too disparate of colors. It's from like a deep blue to a light blue with little bits of being, more saturated and not. But yeah, I knit this beret. I knit it in like 3 days, like 3 evenings, and it's too big. It's way too big. It is so incredibly too big. I will put it on. I'll put it on over this beret so you can see, but like legitimately, it's Okay, that actually doesn't look that bad in the camera, but tell me, this is over a beret, and it's got so much extra space. Like, you can see this. It's it's like it's supposed to go over a lot more hair than I have. Like, I just don't really have. Oh my god, that's so bad. It looks like what are those little cute little Russian crowns that are like? I'm not gonna attempt to say it because I don't remember what it is, but it's comical. It doesn't look nice, especially when we're alone. It doesn't have the same like structure that you'd want. Sorry, it's coming. Maybe. All right. I knew it was not going to have a ton of structure because it is, it's got the mohair and it's a soft texture, soft feel to the gauge and all that. But it's so big. Like when you put it on your head, there's so much space. The thing was, in knitting this, I feel like I'm doing that a lot. Just, but that's how I feel about this because it was easy to knit. The pattern was fairly well written. I prefer a charted lace and cable, but the written out instructions were very well written. I didn't have any problems with that. It was a very quick knit. The look is beautiful. Like this is exactly what I wanted, but I wanted it like 2 sizes smaller, like an actual beret. Now I know knitted berets don't have the same full structure like a felted wool beret unless you felt the yarn. But I do have other knitted berets. My favorite pattern, if you want a simple beret, is the Colette pattern, and it's a free pattern on Ravelry and maybe some other places, and I love it. It's a great beret pattern. It gives you such a nice, like, simple beret, and it has enough of a beret shape that it's clearly a beret and not just like a loose hat. And the problem with this, and I saw people who had it with the right shaping, right? Get myself forward a tiny bit. Okay. And I was worried because you knit, it's a free pattern, so I don't feel like I'm giving anything away with this, but totally check out the pattern. Just, I will say, trust your own judgment on when to stop. So you knit the brim and then you knit a bunch of repeats of the pattern. Pattern, cable, lace, cable, lace. Oh my god, I got so much fluff on my nose. So you do that and you're supposed to do the repeat 4 times for the medium size, which I figure medium's about right. I got a big head, not like a giant head, but not a small head. Like I've never had hats fall off my head from being too big. Rarely do I have hats that are too small unless they're like super vintage, because vintage ladies had tiny heads apparently. So I did the 4 repeats. Well, I did 3 repeats, and then I'm like, this seems kind of big. And I'm like, maybe I should go straight to the increases because the small size is like 15 stitches less for the whole shebanger, and then you do 3 repeats and not 4. And I'm like, maybe I should just do 3. I'm like, maybe it's gonna pull it weird. So I looked on Ravelry to see what other people had done, to see if anyone else had mentioned that it seemed big, to see if anyone else had, I wanted to see what it looked to knit up. I was getting gauge, like even with the strand of mohair, because it's mohair, it's not actually adding, like mohair adds a visual weight to a piece, but doesn't add a lot of like individual poof to the stitch. So I wanted to check out and just see how the people had it knitted up. And the thing I was saying mentioned over and over again, and I was like, I feel like this is exactly opposite of the problem I'm having, and it was, is that everyone was saying it's a beanie. It's coming out so tight. It's coming out, and like, it's not a beret. It's a beanie. And I'm like, well, maybe it just blocks out small. Like you think it's gonna block out a ton, and then it doesn't, or something like that. Maybe I'm just wrong. Maybe, those decreases just happen so fast or something that, if a bunch of people knitting the medium size are wearing it and it's like tight to their head like a skull cap, then there must be something that's going to happen in the decreases or in the finishing that will make it seem smaller. So I did the 4 that were recommended, the 4 repeats of the pattern, and then I did the decreases. It's giant. It's so giant. Like, it fits a man's head. Like, it fits a man's head with room. not to say that like there's a, I mean, head sizes is slightly, men and women have to generally have different head sizes, but like it's a very large hat. It is a very large hat. And it is for someone, like, it would be great if you had a lot of hair and you like to like wear your hair in your hat, or you have like dreads or something. Like if you had dreads or braided hairstyles of some sort. I have just like my normal like flimpity limpity hair, and it doesn't do the thing for me. So I'm gonna have to rip it back. So it looks done. It's not done. Part of me wants to try and block it one more time and see about blocking it inward a little bit more, like if I can get that to fold, but I don't think that's gonna work. And I think that's just me not wanting to have to rip out a bunch of mohair, because I'm gonna have to rip out a bunch of mohair. But I did end up with a bit left of both, which was really nice. I think I might make a headband. So just a little bit of this and a decent amount of the mohair. I might make a headband because it is really soft as well. So yeah, I have to start all over with that one, which is, it was quick, right? It wasn't that big of a problem. It was fairly enjoyable to knit. The pattern wasn't, I mean, it was, you did so little of it. The pattern isn't like memorizable. No, I can't. No, I can't say it. Okay. Try not to laugh. Sorry, the pattern isn't memorizable very much with this, unfortunately, because you only do the 4 repeats and there's only 8 lines to the repeat. So like I could get the gist of it, but it's not like, a simple like 4x4 repeat kind of thing where you're like, boom, it's in your brain. You don't have to look at the pattern. But it wasn't that bad. The knitting of it was wonderful. Like the yarn is perfect and soft and delightful to work with. So I guess I should be counting my, it's not that bad. I'll redo it. I think I'm going to try the small size. I'm kind of just divided if I should try the medium band and like stitch count and the small number of repeats, or if I should go fully small. I think I might just go fully small because this turned out so big. The small's got to turn out like smaller, but not that small. I really just don't understand how, like, I got gauge. I measured my gauge in the, in the pattern section, like not just the ribbing, in the pattern section. And I got gauge. Like mine is not like incredibly looser. I might even knit the small size with smaller needles and just try and, I'd rather have to block it bigger. I hope you guys can't hear that. I have got like a you can't see that. I'm pointing at nothing. I've got a microphone. I'm hoping you can't hear that there's a lot of mowing. Okay, so I'm good. It's a funny thing because when you move, you realize some things about places you used to live that you didn't realize before. And a big one here is people mow all the time. Like people have to mow their mow their yards every week. And I'm like, what? 1, your yard isn't rocks and cactus. And 2, like every week, I'm surprised. Now they're weed whacking too. I'm really hoping that's not coming through. I apologize as it is. But I really haven't gotten used to a lot of things. Like, you don't think there's going to be that much shock, but I mean, the United States is big, right? Like, it's one country, but it's big, and the cultures are pretty different between places. Like, it's also American culture, so you don't feel like proper culture shocky. But oh my gosh, there's so many different things just with the like moisture level that I'm not used to. It's wet here. It is always a bit wet. I like the humidity though. I feel like the humidity is very nice, other than the poofy hair issue. So next up, I'm planning on casting on some, poops-a-doodle. I have a cardigan that I'm gonna rip apart. Because I don't love it anymore. And I'm trying to get to the point in my knitting and my sewing and just general existence where if I don't love something and if I go to reach for it and I hesitate, that I get rid of it. Not that I can't have something that's like, oh, I like this, but, maybe I need the perfect weather or something like that. But if I have something and I'm like, oh, well, I have to dig out a specific bra, or I have to, only wear it with one thing that I own, or if I yada, yada, yada. Because there's so many, well, there's not so many. I've gotten rid of a lot of stuff that fit those categories. But I keep having things that they fill a niche in my wardrobe. Like this cardigan's a cream cardigan that's cabled. They fill a niche in my wardrobe, but I don't 100% like them. So I keep using that piece of clothing while also being like, yeah, about it. So I end up basically disliking outfits when I don't have to. And I knit the cardigan. I can pull it apart and knit something I like better. And I'm going to. I'll show you later. Not now. But my next other project is a hat for my husband. I find that weird to say. We got married, well, we got legaled. We did not get, say we didn't get married. It's called marriage, right? It's a marriage certificate and all that. We didn't have the whole ceremony because we were going to move cross country, and we figured, let's just leave it. Like, we could always do a proper ceremony later. But anyway, he wants a hat. He's got a pair of gloves, and I will not knit him a sweater. Just if I ever say I'm gonna knit him a sweater, I need someone to come and slap the yarn on my hands, because he does not like knitwear. He tells me he likes knitwear, and he does not like knitwear. But he does love his gloves, and I figured I'd make him a hat. So we got this Juniper Moon Farms Patagonia Organic Merino, and of course it is in. There we go. Put it in front of my face. It's in gray because he lives in dyes in gray, but I'm not going to say dyes. He wears a lot of gray. And this is really nice. And I have a bat. I was saying a beret pattern picked up, but I don't. I have a like beanie pattern that's ribbed brim with some cables, and very much him. He's a very lumberjacky type person, and I feel like it suits that. He does not appreciate being called lumberjacky, but he has been a lumberjack for Halloween for the last decade. So you reap what you sow on that one, right? So that's all my knitting for right now. I figured I'd talk about sewing a little bit. I know these knitting podcast type things tend to be knitting focused, but I do a lot of stuff, and I do not have the capacity to talk about things in different. I totally do, but I don't want to. I figure I'll come and chat about this. I was gonna try and do this every couple of weeks. I'm gonna stop for half a second, just chat about this, because I feel really bad starting this, selfish. I don't know if that's the right way to put it, but it feels kind of selfish. But I really like watching other people talk about their knitting, and I watch knitting podcasts. I watch the people's sewing updates and things like that, or Sew and Tell. I think that I'm a pun person. I'm just a pun person. And I really like listening to other people, and I kind of just want to do it myself. And I'm kind of nervous just to put this out there, because you're when it's on the internet, other people watch it and they don't. It's hard to feel like someone's talking directly to you, but they aren't, because there's time and space removal there. But yeah, I wanted to try, I guess. And I really love the sense of community that a lot of podcasts have around, doing challenges and, having good chats with people. And I really have felt out of a community, out of a knitting community. In New Mexico, there really isn't as big of a knitting community. There's only one yarn shop, and I didn't have a very good experience there. I don't want to say anything bad about the yarn shop itself, because tons of places you go in and people just aren't feeling their best, and I don't feel like it's fair to say anything about them personally. But I just didn't really feel welcome. And I came here and legitimately went into a yarn store, the closest yarn store to me. There was a yarn crawl right when we moved, and I didn't take part in the yarn crawl because we were running around with doing a billion things to get set up because we had just moved and we needed to get like all the IDs and form changes, and we had just gotten married right before we moved, like a week before we moved. We did everything last minute. No, we were all planned, but everything ended up happening last minute. So I never did the yarn crawl, but I went to one of the stores that was close to me because they said, I want to say this is the best advertising you can have in a city like Pittsburgh. They had a flat and empty or big parking lot. And I'm like, oh my God, we can park somewhere. Because the parking around here is crazy. I am scared of the roads. I'm scared of the drivers. So I'm like, it's a flat, big parking lot. We can go there. And I went, and it was amazing. And they were like, legitimately, I almost started tearing up. Like, I am not a super, like, emotional person, but I was so, oh, there's the cat. It's hard. I can see myself a little bit on the screen, and I can't tell which way I'm pointing because I'm kind of flipped. That's Maisie. She came with us. She's a little cat. She's an old girl. She's not a kitten. I know she looks like one, but she's 8 years old. So, and she left. But yeah, I almost teared up in the store because they were so nice and like so welcoming. And I'm like, oh my gosh, you're new here, you know. I loved it. I was just so inspired that like you can move across country, you can move 1,000 miles away and walk into a place and people are like, hey, let's, you know, come in, you're welcome. I think especially because like that whole week we had been doing like bureaucratic nightmare stuff. Like I had gone to the DMV 3 times and I was just like, oh, finally somebody's, you know, it felt wonderful. So I got this from there as well. But yeah, it was so nice. And it's like, I miss that sense of community. I've not been in a hobby, like a lot of the J fashion communities have become so disparate. Like when I started this channel, if you have ever seen my old videos, please don't go watch them if you haven't. Oh my gosh. I haven't looked at them in a very long time, and they're all filmed on a potato. So take your chances if you want to go look at them. But it used to be a pretty big community, and I think it still is a pretty big amount of people who dress silly. But the community is very spread apart, different platforms. When I made those videos, I had a blog, like an old-fashioned blogspot blog, and I used to love that because it felt like you could actually chat with people. It felt very connected, and I really, really miss that. And that's kind of why I'm doing this. I'm not sure if I'm going to cut this out or not, because I feel like it's a little sappy, but it is true. Like, I really love watching a bunch of podcasts and getting a little touch of what people are doing. And she's going to smack into the microphone. There we go. Okay. She decided to get up here with me and cause havoc. So I actually would love to know if you knit or you sew or you craft or you just like to watch other people do it. How you doing? What's up? Yeah, I'm really... Tell me what you're working on. Tell me what you want to be working on. Tell me what pets you have, as I try and keep mine from killing the... She's probably giving you some like weird cat panting ASMR. So sorry. Anyway, tell me what you're working on, what you want to be working on, what's inspiring you, because I am super interested. I'm really here for it. I'm trying to make this like, I'm really bad at social media. Like, I'm the person who'll be gone from social media for months, not because of like an intentional break, but just because I forgot it existed. So I'm really trying to like put myself out there, I guess. So let's talk about sewing, because I can't take being sappy any longer. So I want to show you, we moved here and I brought my sewing stuff. obviously. I didn't bring everything. I didn't bring all my fabric, but I did bring my sewing stuff, and I haven't sewn because I don't have a desk yet, which is one of my next purchases to start like properly researching and hopefully getting a desk and a chair and all that kind of stuff for sewing. But I do have a couple of things I had finished right before I moved. Because you know what you should do when you're going to move across country, when you're packing up to, uproot your whole life and move across country? You should start a project that's going to involve sewing up until like 2 days before you move. Because I make good decisions, right? So this is my dress that I made. I found this fabric at Joann's and I love it. And I had to make a dress, right? So this is the dress. I will attempt to put in like photos. I'm not sure if I even have a photo of myself in this dress, and that was totally blurry, wasn't it? Because it didn't have a face in it. But this is there's a loose thread because I'm good at that. Anyway, it's a mushroom print, and it is, what is the pattern? It's a pattern, but I totally hacked it to pieces, so I don't even recommend. Like, the pattern's fine. No, the pattern's not. I'm not gonna. I have really wide shoulders. Like, for my size, my shoulders are quite broad. I have never, ever, ever in my life had to shorten the shoulders on a pattern, and this one I did significantly. Now, this shirt's meant to sit off shoulder, so that's how it's supposed to be. Well, it's a dress, but what you can see of it. It's meant to sit off shoulder. But the shoulder width on this one, it's supposed to have sleeves as well, where the arm side is supposed to start on the top, was so far out. It was like to here. And I had made one version with sleeves, and I hated it. I hated it so much. So I wanted to try again because I really love this detail here. So it's got a little pointed sort of waist panel with a tiny bit of gathers here, and I really, really like the gathering because I feel like it gives you a little extra bust room without having to have darts, and it almost slightly de-emphasizes your bust. Now, I have a very large bust for my frame. I do. I really hate it. And I have a problem of cuts like this tend to cut right under bust, and then they just make you kind of a boob monster. And I prefer not to be a boob monster. It's not the look I'm going for in most things. And this actually hits slightly on the bust. And then the gathering being so centralized here kind of, I would say, de-emphasizes the bust, but it doesn't emphasize the bust, which I really like. And the other thing I did in this pattern was it was a very deep. I don't think you're supposed to have any buttons until this. This was the first button, and it was a deep V. But it crossed over just a little bit, so it wasn't like scandalous, but I realized I don't like V-necks. It's one of those things, like, I've been trying to have a more intentional wardrobe. I'm trying to buy things that I like to wear. I'm trying to not have anything there's a really good phrase for this. Nothing on my B team. Like, you have your A team clothes and you have your B team clothes. The A team clothes are things you're excited to wear. And even if they aren't like fancy clothes, they're the things that you put on and you're happy with. Even if it's just a set of PJs, it's something you put on and you're like, yes, this fits its purpose. I like how it looks on me. If I catch that of myself in the mirror, I'm not going to be plucking at my clothes because that sucks, right? And your B team stuff is like the stuff you wear when other stuff is dirty. Like, you would never reach for it if something on your A team is clean and appropriate, right? So I'm trying to get rid of all of my B team clothing. Everything that's like, I don't love. Everything that I feel a little uncomfortable in, or I don't think it suits me very well. And I hate V-necks. I know this has like giant V detailing on it, but I just don't like when the neckline of something is a V shape. I feel like it's unflattering for my shoulders and for my bust. But I love this with a round neck. I totally changed the skirt. The skirt was, and the other one was a paneled, like A-line skirt. This is just a big old square. Whoopsies. This is just a big old square, which I like. I love the buttons on the front. I really think button front things are something I like. So it's got little buttons. They don't match, but they're all vintage, like shell pearl type buttons, which I kind of like because I tried to match them like slowly changing in type, like so they don't look super unmatching. But I love this. I've gotten so many compliments. I think because like mushrooms are kind of in right now. People are like, oh my gosh, I love mushrooms. And yeah, mushrooms are kind of in, I guess. It's going to be like, is this going to be like 2008 when we all look back and we're like, why did we all wear owls? Why were owls so popular? But mushrooms might be the new one. But I love this. I'll put the pattern down below. I think the one thing, well, the two things that are nice, it's got a shirt back. Like it is actually meant to be kind of a shirt dress. Because it's got the placket and then a slight gather. The one thing is it didn't gather, like you could gather it into the waist, but you don't really need that much back fullness. And especially on the crossover one, it made it like blouson in the back, which I didn't find the Quasimodo look for me. But I do like the placket for the top, the yoke placket. It's very nice. And I do love the shape of this, which I did change as well. I made it a little more pointed in the center. But I do really like this. I just think you need to play with it. Like, it's a good idea, but I really like the dress it made, you know? I really think this is, the one thing I'm really excited about is I didn't line it. So it is all just like self-faced, very simply, which is actually kind of my preferred. I either go for a full lining or it's just like the simplest finishing I can do, because then I can layer it a lot more easily. I don't have to worry about the lining being slippy, because I don't like a slippy lining. It's something I'm going to wear against skin. But then I can layer, if I want to lay this over a turtleneck, I can, and I don't have to worry about catching or feeling too warm or too cold. I've been wearing it with a cardigan for the summer, but I'm pretty excited to wear it layered over top of other tops later in the winter, because I want it to be all seasons. And it reaches like a bit under the knee. I think that's my sweet spot now in terms of length, is a bit under the knee. All right, last thing I'm going to show you is this set I made. I wore this out once, and then we moved, and I realized I needed to do a couple of adjustments. It is based on sort of what I made here, and you can tell I haven't obviously finished it completely, and it's dark purple, so I'm sure it's going to show this side, on this side. Oh, I think this side's better. Cool. It's a top, and you can tell I haven't finished it because there's things stuck on it. And it is a ruffled little top. And it's got some pin tucks and lace on the front panel. And the cool thing I made with this, and I felt like super genius, right? When I did this and then I screwed it up. But I wanted to make some separates because I don't have a lot of skirts. And I wear a lot of skirts. I tend to, when I want a casual outfit, pull like a blouse and a skirt and a cardigan, and it feels a bit more casual sometimes. But so with this, I wanted to make something that could look like an OP, like a dress with sleeves. So I'm not sure who the heck's gonna watch this, to be honest. Like, I don't know. But I'm using Japanese terminology, not in Japanese, but if you buy from Japanese brands, a dress with sleeves is often called a one piece or an OP, and a dress without sleeves is called a JSK or a jumper skirt. That's just so you know what I'm saying. I like the designation because it really does fulfill two different bits of your wardrobe. Like a dress with sleeves will have more constraints than a dress without sleeves, whereas a dress without sleeves have more layering opportunities, you know, things like that. But I made this as a top, and it's got a little waistband on it and everything. And as I disappear for a second, I made a skirt. So I really like Pink House as a brand. I don't tend to go for as many patterns, although I do have a chicken dress. I have a dress with a ton of chickens on it. It's very cute. I'll wear it eventually. I love the very heavily textured nature of their garments. So if you've not seen the brand Pink House, they do a lot of sort of, I want to say like idealized prairie wear, like long, a bit on the loose side, lots of detail, lots of pin tucks, lots of ruffles. Very, very expensive. Very well made and all that. But this one, I made myself a skirt. And the thing I wanted to do is that the skirt and the top could be worn together as a dress. That was super, super informative picture right there. But they can be worn together as a dress. And then they can be worn separately. I don't think I'd ever wear the top by itself, but the skirt could be worn as a skirt. And so it's got like ruffles on the bottom, several layers of pin tucks, another one line of lace, more pin tucks, more ruffles, more pin tucks, and a button front. And so that they could be worn together. My problem is I took my bodice and my skirt and that was it. Problem is if I lift my arms up, you can see my belly. And that's not me. I am not the type of person to show my stomach. And I feel like this is a weird outfit to show your stomach in as well. So I'm going to put in some hooks to hook them together when I want to wear them together. And then when I want to wear them apart, I can just unhook it. That way, the shortness of the top is connected to the bottom. And so if I lift my arms up, it just lifts the bottoms up as well. Because it is a perfect length. Like it sits at my waist, 100%. Like 100% sits at my waist. But it is not, well, when it's not tight enough, like it's not tight, so it will lift when I move my arms up. And yeah, I just didn't take it into account. I think it looks super cute on. I really love a detailed, solid piece like this. A little bit of cream lace, because like cream is my absolute most favorite accent color. Yeah, but I'm really excited to finish this. Needs just a little bit of work. I don't know why I find it so hard to come back to pieces that I had worked on prior. Like, I almost feel like it's done. Let it go. But I want this finished. I wanted to wear it as a set. So that's my next thing to come back to once I get my sewing machine set up again. I think that's everything. I think that is. So yeah, if you got all the way to the end, thank you. Thank you so much. Like, talk to me down in the comments. Like, I'm gonna read them. I'm gonna answer. You know, I'm really excited. I guess I should say, like, the old videos on this channel are wig styling videos for J Fashion, and I probably won't do any more of that, and I mean, unless people want it, because I don't think it's super relevant anymore. I still do wear J Fashion, so if you like used to watch those videos and you're like, oh my god, who's this lady? Like, I do still dress up. I still dress weird most of the time. And most of my makes and stuff are gonna be things that fall in that sort of cutesy, girly, detailed, cottagecore, Lolita fashion type styles. So, yeah. I think I'm just dragging this out. I should probably just say goodbye. I hope you have a fab and a half day. Thank you for spending time with me. I really appreciate you just listening, being here, chatting to me. Bye. Oh no.